Good evening. I would like to call to order today's meeting, February 19th, 2019, Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting. We would like to welcome those in attendance as well as those watching at home. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Hendricks, Director Richardson, Director Webb, Director Peck, Director Hines, Director Wright, Director Compuris, Director Fortson, Director Adcock, Vice Mayor Wyrick, Mayor Scott.
Present. Let me please now recognize Director Joan Adcock, who will give our invocation.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come tonight with hearts, Lord, to ask you to please be with this meeting and please be with us as we make our decisions for the citizens of this town. Be with us, Lord, as we look at each item and vote according to what would be best for everyone. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the rain today. We thank you for the spring that will soon be here. Thank you for all of your blessings and all that you've done for us. We ask these things in your name and serve you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Director Adcock. Let's all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a modification to add to tonight's agenda. Do we have a motion to add agenda item M1?
So move.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Mr. City Manager and Mr. Parliamentarian, if you all would just kind of read over that particular one.
Mayor Scott, at the end of 2018, a memorandum was sent by former Mayor Stodola to the director of the Human Resources Department. He stated in the letter, in the memorandum, that he believed he was entitled to all unused PTO, personal time off, and all unused short-term disability, STD, and that he expected the payment for that. The issue has gone back and forth with those assertions. The fact that he made the statement that he was entitled to that made it apparent that the city was looking at litigation. His claim is that he's entitled to 2,281.53 hours of vacation pay and 211.73 hours of sick short-term disability, according to the records in the Human Resources Department. Combined, the payments for those two amounts, remembering that STD is a percentage payment and not a dollar-for-dollar payment, would be $191,789.23. There has been a settlement negotiated to avoid litigation that would pay the mayor the sum of $160,000. Of course, withholdings will be taken out of that as appropriate. He would donate the 211.73 hours of STD to the Catastrophic Leave Bank. We would permit him to extend his health coverage for an additional 6 months. The $160,000 would come from the 2018 sick leave and vacation payout account. All of this is contingent, of course, upon the execution of a litigation without any admission of fault, just to get the matter behind the board.
Thank you. Just from a parliamentary procedure standpoint, should we move forward with a vote?
You've added it to your agenda. You haven't actually said it would be the first thing on the agenda, but you as the chair can decide it will be, and unless you're challenged, it would be.
It's been moved and properly second to allow M1 to be voted upon at this point in time. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? No. Ayes have it. There's a roll call. Oh. Madam Clerk has stepped away, but Mr. Manager, could you?
Sure.
This is one of those as duties assigned.
Right. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to.
Susan's on her way. We'll let Susan.
What are we doing?
There's a rope.
We're trying to help Mr. Manager.
Well, it was my mom calling. I let her take the call. So stay.
Director Hendricks? Director Richardson? Director Webb? Director Peck? Director Hines? Director Wright? Director Campuris? Director Fortson? Director Adcock? Vice Mayor Wyrick? 7-2. I did that. Shoot.
Motion passes 7-2. I do still want to definitely give deference to Director Adcock. She did want to make a statement.
Mr. Moore, in 2018, how many hours could you carry over?
How many hours could I carry over?
Yes, because the mayor was on the same level as you at that time. I know that yours was increased for 2019, but in 2018, what was the number of hours you could carry over?
Could we?
No, it doesn't.
Director Adcock, the question is how many hours could I carry over? I think the board voted that my compensation package would be comparable to the city attorney. So I couldn't tell you right now how many hours I had at the end of the.
No, that's not what I asked. Prior to 2018, whenever we increased it for the 2019 year, I believe you had 500 hours that you could carry over. Is that correct?
I think there's some, when I, back in 2002, I had 800 hours as assistant city manager. So I think there was some confusion as far as the number of hours that I was eligible to carry over.
What was your hours, 2,281 that you could carry over?
Again, I couldn't tell you the exact amount. The city's vacation policy, our PTO, is based on tenure with the city as a number of years. That increases the multiplier.
But it was my opinion that you had 500 hours that you could carry over, not 2,281. This was a new number that the mayor came up with at the end of the year. This was not a number that we ever looked at for you or for the mayor. And I have a real problem that we are sitting here tonight spending $160,000 that we never heard about in the years that Mark Stoller was the mayor of this city. But at the end of his tenure, we hear about all these hours. So my vote will be no, because I do not believe that the city owes this money, and I will not be spending this money. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adcock. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda consists of a motion to approve the minutes of December 18th, 2018, January 8th, 2019, and January 22nd, 2019, Little Rock City Board of Directors meetings. A resolution authorized the city manager to enter into a contract with Shields and Associates Incorporated in amount not to exceed $517,000 for construction services for the Two Rivers restroom project and for the purposes. A resolution authorized the city manager to enter into a contract with Northside Sales for a total cost of $73,413 for the purchase of one Area RAE Pro hazardous materials detection device system for the Little Rock Fire Department hazardous materials team and for the purposes. A resolution authorized the city manager to enter into a contract with RP Power in the amount of $83,257.96 for the purchase of one Kohler emergency generator for the Information Technology Department and for the purposes. A resolution authorized the city manager to transmit the third payment of a 3-year renewal agreement with SHI Incorporated in amount of $332,083.95 license for the city's core client access licenses and all other software through the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, and for the purposes, a resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Baldwin and Shell Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $138,593 to provide Phase 2 general contractor repair services for the Oakland and Fraternal Historic Cemetery Mausoleum, and for the purposes, a resolution to ratify the appointment of Dr. J. Barth to the Central Arkansas Water Board of Commissions, and for the purposes, that concludes the consent agenda.
Been moved and probably second. We adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Now moving to second reading, or group items. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Adcock.
I would like to request that item 8 be held separate, please.
Yes.
I think that you have neighborhood people here on this, and also I have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Cruise Uniforms and Equipment in the amount of $400,604.45 for the purchase of uniforms, related duty gear, and bulletproof vests for 2019 for the Little Rock Police Department, and for the purposes, an ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Sharp Logics for a total amount of $63,000 for the purchase of one Smart Ray portable X-ray system for the Little Rock Fire Department Bomb Squad, and for the purposes, an ordinance to reduce the levy of the tax on the assessment of benefits to be received by the owners of each of the several blocks, lots, and parcels of land within the St. Charles Municipal Lighting Improvement District Number 1 of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes, an ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas with structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency, and for the purposes. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
There's a motion and a second. I suspend the rules and ordinances for second reading. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion has, and Madam Clerk, second reading, please.
An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Cruise Uniforms and Equipment in the amount of $400,604.45 for the purchase of uniforms, related duty gear, and bulletproof vests for 2019 for the Little Rock Police Department. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Sharp Logic for a total amount of $63,000 for the purchase of one Smart Ray portable X-ray system for the Little Rock Fire Department Bomb Squad. An ordinance to reduce the levy of the tax on the assessment of benefits to be received by the owners of each of the several blocks, lots, and parcels of land within the St. Charles Municipal Lighting Improvement District Number 1 of Little Rock, Arkansas. An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas as structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules to move ordinances to a third and final reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Madam Clerk, third reading, please.
An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into contract with Cruise Uniforms and Equipment in the amount of $400,604.45 for the purchase of uniforms, related duty gear, and bulletproof vests for 2019 for the Little Rock Police Department. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Sharp Logic for the total amount of $63,000 for the purchase of one Smart Ray portable X-ray system for the Little Rock Fire Department Bomb Squad. An ordinance to reduce the levy of the tax assessment of benefits to be received by the owners of each of the several blocks, lots, and parcels of land within the St. Charles Municipal Lighting Improvement District Number 1 of Little Rock, Arkansas. An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas with structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
We've had three readings of these ordinances. Are there any questions? Director Adcock? No. Oh, you didn't have a question? Thank you so much. Seeing none, there being none, all those in favor of the passage of these ordinances, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, please say nay. I'm now going to go into a special public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinances for the first time?
Oh, yeah, you have emergency clause on 12.
A motion, a motion and a second for
All in favor?
all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Now we'll go into a public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance?
An ordinance to authorize the construction of betterments improvements to the water reclamation system of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to authorize the issuance of water reclamation system revenue bonds, Series 2019, for the purpose of financing the cost thereof, to provide for the payment of the principal and interest of the bond, prescribing other matters relating thereto, and for the purposes first reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules for a second reading. Madam Clerk, please second reading. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passed. Madam Clerk, second reading.
An ordinance to authorize the construction of betterments and improvements to the water reclamation system of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to authorize the issuance of a water reclamation system revenue bond, Series 2019, for the purpose of financing the cost thereof, to provide for the payment of the principal and interest on the bond, prescribing other matters relating thereto. Second reading.
Then moving properly second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Madam Clerk, third reading, please.
An ordinance to authorize the construction of betterments and improvements to the water reclamation system of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to authorize the issuance of a water reclamation system revenue bond, Series 2019, for the purpose of financing the cost thereof, to provide for the payment of the principal and interest on the bond, prescribing other matters relating thereto. Third and final reading.
Are there any individuals present that would like to speak for or against this item? But prior to, we'll allow Director Adcock to speak.
Mayor, I would like to have a presentation on this. I think they are prepared, and I think it's important that the citizens know what this $18 million is being spent for.
Presentation by
Mr. Ramon.
Mr. Ramon. Would you please approach the podium?
Mayor Scott, Vice Mayor Wyrick, City Directors, Bruce. This is a very brief presentation. I just wanted to give you sort of an update of where we're at and what we're doing. Starting off with, if you don't know, we went into an agreement with the Sierra Club in 2001 regarding overflows. And in 2008, the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality filed suit and also issued a consent administrative order. The issue is two issues. One is mitigation of overflows during dry weather event or non-capacity. The other one is during wet weather events. The dry weather event one is basically every once in a while sewers are going to stop up because of roots, because of grease, because of what have you. And it's generally a maintenance issue. It's generally also an issue of keeping that stuff out of the system. We have 1,400 miles of collection system, and every city has these overflows. It's just part of doing business. Part of that agreement was that we would have no more than 6 overflows per 100 miles of collection system. Right now, we are down to 21 per year. We are allowed 83, and I just want to say that the organization has shifted to a technology to help us. So we're actually using a sonic wave in the pipes now to determine whether they're clean or not. It's kind of senseless to clean a pipe that's already clean, and so really concentrating on the pipes that need the cleaning has gotten us to that number. The wet weather capacity. Prior to 1980, no one cared whether the pipes leaked or water got into the pipes, and EPA quickly found out that that was a problem for medium-sized and large-sized cities. Most medium-sized and large-sized cities are in some kind of consent administrative order or some kind of improvement plan. After 1980, give or take, they made changes to the pipe material. They made changes to the joints to prevent water from getting in. So what we have is we have a system with approximately 1,100, 1,200 miles of lines that have the old type of joints to them, and they leak. And during a rain event, as we had today, lots of water gets into our system. So our job is to minimize that from occurring. The agreement is that no overflows are to occur with a rain event of 4.15 inches of rain within a 48-hour period. When we first started the program, we had 339 sites where overflows occurred. Right now, we're down to 49. What I'm here to you, before you now is to ask permission for the $18 million revolving loan fund. And the revolving loan fund has a lot of advantages. It has a couple of disadvantages. One, as you can see, we started in September of 2017 with the request, and we're here today. So it takes about 16 months for the process to work its way through. We're at the end now. We now need one more vote, and that would be from you to continue this. But I'll go on to talk about the loan itself. It's $18 million, 30-year term, 3% interest, and I think right now, if you were to go out for revenue bonds, it'd be about a 4%, so we're saving 1% there. It is within our rate structure. It's got a lot of other great advantages. We don't get the money all in one amount. We basically have a 3-year period by which we spend it. We don't pay for interest until we spend the money, so it does have a lot of advantages. So what are we doing with the money? These are some of the jobs that we've got programmed in for 2019 and into 20. As you can see, they're all over the city. If we go to the next slide, that's the area that we're concentrating in. And so we've done a lot of work within the city, and now we're going to the outskirts of the city. If you go to the next slide, this really this is indicative of all the work that we've done since 2001. So we really have been in all areas of the city. So that's my presentation to you. But before I answer any questions, I want to show you one more slide. I'm very proud of this slide. The City Council approved in 2013 the service line replacement program. And I want to say since 2013, we have replaced almost 2,200 services throughout the city, and you can see where those are at. Although those are separate and distinct from this loan, I thought it was important. That's something that came out of this group. The success has been just tremendous. So with that said, Mayor, if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramon. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, and there's no agenda cards for this discussion. Yeah, we don't have any cards for this one. The public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved. Second.
Then moving properly second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. We are now moving to our citizens' communication.
We've got item 8 we need to go back and do.
Sorry for the grouped item, separate item. Item 8. Director Adcock, did you have a question? Well, we have one agenda for item 8. That is Mr. Ron Muse. Mr. Muse, if you would please approach.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Directors, Mr. Carpenter, and Mr. Moore. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you. I have a question first, and it's about the $52,000 to develop branding through Crafton and Tull. I would like to know, where's that money coming from? Is it excess money from the Jump Start?
The understanding I have is yes, it's excess money from the Jump Start.
Okay, well, in our many meetings that we've had, facilitated by Oslin Polot, who I asked to be here tonight, and I don't see her. She was a facilitator from planning. We went through the process, and it was her suggestion that we consider using that excess money for a park behind the Willie Hinton Center that would take in 2 city blocks adjacent to the old Lee Theater, which we are hopefully progressing with the monies to renovate that into a visual and performing arts place. So I feel like that money has already been spoken for. Everyone was in agreement that that's how it should be used. This was a community effort. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that process that we used or to tell you what I know. I was acting chair of that meeting, of that committee, subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Muse. Director Peck?
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Just so I'm clear, so you're saying that the $52,000 was already earmarked for the park?
In our understanding, yes, ma'am. Brought to us by a planner from the city.
And when did all that transpire?
It was early last year, as I recall. I don't know the exact date. It's been a while.
And why did that not come to fruition?
Well, that's what we would like to know. We'd like to know a lot of things. And one of those is, why are we bringing in someone to do the branding for us when we've already made that decision? We spent over 2 years working, trying to get as many people involved as possible through various media, businesses, and community leaders to become involved. We were collecting quite a few names, and that big collection of names was narrowed down through a vote by everyone who had been part of the process or who was on our mailing list, which we were continually adding to from community individuals. And the vote was sent out via email attachment, one of those Survey Monkeys or whatever it was. And it was very simple to do. Of these listed, then select the ones you do not want. And I think we had 2 votes each. And then subsequent to that, there was some discussion. And someone thought that not enough participants were on record. So Irma Peterson, who's the president of the Hope Neighborhood Association, and I were having a conversation. And she thought it would be a great idea if we were to bring together individuals during National Night Out, which was the last one. I thought it was a great idea. I brought it to the group. She couldn't make the meeting because she had to work. And everyone in attendance were of the mind that this was a great idea because people turn out in the hundreds. So I had been earlier at a meeting with the Fair Park and Oak Forest residents and asked if I could extend an invitation for them to participate with us in this because they were holding a National Night Out at St. Mark's. And we, of those listed, Forest Hills, Hope, Pine to Woodrow, Love, and Stevens Faith neighborhoods have gathered in the past for as long as Willie Hinton Center has been open to hold our National Night Out there, and we have hundreds of people participating. So the suggestion she made was that we have tables set up at each of the events and that people would have the opportunity to vote for one of the 6 that the long list had been narrowed down to by voting of all of those that had any participation at all in the past. And then I thought it'd be a good idea to add to that to have blank sheets of paper that if anyone wanted to make another suggestion who had not had that opportunity, that they could write that down and put it in a separate container. And then we would consider it, if we thought it should be added to the 6, or if we, whatever would come from that, we wanted at least to have the community have an opportunity who had not participated before to be able to do that. And then at the last business meeting we had, Business and Community Needs Subcommittee, of which I represented the community also. We were told, I said, I know that of Osland Polat, I asked what were the results from the National Night Out, and she said, well, they're all in a box. And I said, can you tell me tell us what the results are? Because I know that this is not the branding subcommittee. It's the business committee, but I was asking her prior to us convening the meeting. And she said they're in a box. And then at the last meeting we had planned for the branding, I walk into a room full of people, and our director and Frederick Gentry assumed to control the meeting. We had learned that we were getting a new grocery store, and the individuals who were doing this or planning to do this were present. And so we actually didn't have a meeting per se, and that's when it came up that money, something was going to be presented to the board for consideration, and that would be soon coming to hire Crafton and Toll as the persons to decide the branding for us. That's not the way it was delivered to us, but that's the way people want to know. Why do more people not get involved? Why do they not come to these things? It's been historical that it turns out, and it's not just in our area, it's in a lot of areas, and I hear this from other organizations, is that people are told that this would not be something that would be done to us, and it turns out that they take control in the end. So we don't like the idea of having been told that the monies would be allocated for a park, and then only to hear that it's going to bring in a consulting firm to decide that for us. So this is doing to us.
Thank you, that's helpful. It still is a mess. I don't pretend to understand it all, but I did know a lot of the history, so I just kind of wanted the timeline and
Well, this is basic. I'm sorry to interrupt, but these are just some thoughts I tried to organize, just giving you a timeline of events.
So you still don't know really the feedback from the community, or what was in...
We don't know
what people wanted and how it all...
That has not been shared with us. However, it was said at the meeting I just mentioned that they didn't like it. So someone knows, but they didn't like the name that was chosen. I don't know what that is. I have no idea. None of us do. So this is why we don't have more people becoming involved in the community, is because things like this happen. But we do spend our time, and people do get involved, and they get excited, and they think these things are going to happen, those things are going to happen, and then we don't have a voice any longer. I'd like to answer any other questions. I wanted to put this in prose, but I ran out of time. I just gave you my thoughts in order of events.
Thank you, Mr. Muse. Director Adcock?
Yes, Mr. Moore, I'm sorry, but I do not know this. Osmond Polak, is she here?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I noticed that Mr. Collins is not here either. I would like to see this postponed until you can talk to her about these meetings. I've talked to some of these neighborhoods. They've been looking forward to the things that they had planned, and then all of a sudden we're up here going to spend $52,000, which I understand the neighborhood should be controlling that money and not this board. And I would like for you to research this a little bit. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this for 2 weeks until Mr. Moore can check with...
We first have to continue on with the other questions of the directors that have asked.
I would like to
Motion
say,
to defer takes precedence if there's a second.
okay.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say
I
aye.
have no problem with Mr. Carpenter, I have no problem with the other board members asking their questions.
It's not a debatable motion.
Well, then I withdraw my motion to after the other directors have asked their questions.
Director Campuris?
Jones said what I was going to say.
Mayor,
Director Richardson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I understand the importance of this process, we felt that seeking a professional consulting firm would help ensure that we had the same kind of community engagement that we did back in 2008, which led to the adoption of our 12th Street Corridor Plan by this board in 2009, which also led to us winning the Urban Design Award from the Arkansas Planning Association in 2010. And part of that is centered around and engaged on consultants helping us thoroughly engage the community. They're familiar with the community is familiar with them, whether they had steering committees or public meetings that were well attended. We're talking over 11 years ago, and they've done a wonderful job, and we think that it would be practical and feasible for us to engage them to help us with this engagement process. And we're not going to preempt the work that's already going on prior to this. If this is approved, we're going to also take that in consideration and move forward with the work in order to help thoroughly move the 12th Street work forward. And they were instrumental in helping us get the grant from Metro Plan to actually do the second part of 12th Street, which is the Jumpstart Initiative. And the notion of having a pocket park that was not established because that involved the city trading a lot with a guy who took us to the cleaners when he owned part of the drugstore, the 12th Street thrift store, and we don't own a lot that was targeted for a pocket park. We own a lot next to it. We had no ownership of that lot, and it was going to have us dealing with a guy who, as Director Hendricks said time and time again, out-of-state loan owner who owns a lot of property in that area, and he wasn't the fairest of partners when we bought that 8A's drugstore that was attached to the thrift store. So this would help and ensure work that started 10 years ago with a group of people who work with that community, faith-based organizations, neighborhood associations, businesses, and help us keep them involved, to keep us engaging. Those folks need to be at the table to help us move this work forward. We adopted the plan in 2009. We won an Arkansas Planning Association award in 2010 that they helped us get. And we also got funding from Metro Plan shortly after that to help continue the work. So I think they've been beneficial, helpful to the work in the community and what we've been doing. And it's been done with the community. And that's part of why I think we were able to move our work so fast and move it as progressive as we were able to do. So with respect to that, I think it's in our best interest to understand the whole process and not picking out not just taking little bits and pieces and trying to make those represent the whole plan. I think understand this whole process. I think it's in our best interest to get these folks back involved. I have no personal interest in them. I have no financial interest in them, and I have no personal like or dislike. I understand that they're professional, they know what they're doing, and they help us do some work, some really, really important work in an underdeveloped part of our community that I think we need to continue.
Thank you so much, Director Richardson. We have a question from Director Hendricks.
It's not a question, it's concern. Is it possible, since this is just coming up at this meeting, that the staff could get with Mr. Moore and really do what needs to be done? Because I hear Joan and I hear Ken talking, and you know, we do too much of what it is right now at this place. And I really think, and I may be wrong, but you know I'm going to speak my piece, and I don't think we can settle that now. And Mr. Richardson mentioned that this started in 2009, and here it is 2019.
The initial 12th Street plan, Director Hendricks, was started in 2008 with support from UAMS and Central Arkansas Library System along with the city to hire consultants to move that community through a planning process. This was started back in 2008. This board adopted that plan in 2009.
So who's been sitting on it?
Pardon me?
Who's been sitting on this?
We had a steering committee doing the first part. We wrote a grant to move the second part. We had a steering committee. We had public meetings. It was a host of people. We had the chief of police. We had Tony Bazinski when he was over that department. We had a number of people that was part of the steering committee, a smaller group of a larger group that was involved and engaged in that whole planning process. And it was a thoroughly engaged, thoroughly involved planning process. It was something that was done with the community rather than to the community, for the community, or at the community. And that can be clearly shown by anybody who's been involved 11 years ago.
Do you feel comfortable in us just going on voting on this tonight?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I think the people help us get the funding to continue to work. I feel very comfortable. As someone who's been the architect or the point person for that work for well over 11 years, I feel very comfortable with us moving forward because I think these people bring a certain level of expertise that we don't have in-house and that we don't have with the current steering committee makeup that we need to have at the table to make this more effective, more productive, to set goals and timelines and move this work in a more comprehensive way.
Thank you.
Director Adcock.
Mr. Moore, again, I would like for you to check with the city employee. The neighborhood people felt like this Jumpstart money was money that they was going to be able to look at and to have some of the things that they're looking for in their neighborhood instead of paying it to another consultant. If this was the city money, it would be one thing, but this is money that the neighborhood felt like that they had a part of. They feel like they've already voted for the branding name. We're told that the names are in a box, Mr. Moore, and I'd like to have this employee talk with you and let you know what has been done with this with the neighborhood people. This is several neighborhoods, and I understand that even Fair Park is interested in joining them. So again, I move that this be postponed for 2 weeks or deferred for 2 weeks with Mr. Moore talking with the city staff that was part of this process.
And point of privilege before we carry on with the motion, Director Adcock, we do have another comment from Director Webb. Do you want to still extend that same?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Thank you, Director Adcock. I had a question for Mr. Muse, if that's okay. It looked like after he finished answering the questions before, that he had something else that he wanted to say, I think, to read something from somebody who wasn't here, and I didn't know if that were germane to the later questions that were asked.
It is. I received a text from Gary Iverson who wanted to be here but couldn't make it. And if I may, I can read it. Is it okay?
Yes, Mr. Muse. Thank you, Mr. Parliamentarian.
It should be a community decision, in my opinion, especially since y'all have had so much work put into it and a decision was already made. I won't be able to make the meeting this evening, excuse me, because of other prior commitments, but I will talk with Ken and see if we can get it back on track and on the table for discussion. I would love to support you in person, maybe at the next meeting when I can make it. I have some other issues to bring up as well. Good luck at the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Muse. Director Richardson.
He's the president of Forest Hills. Forest Park.
Fair Park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The previous Fair Park Neighborhood Association president was a part of the steering committee, and I think that this work is time sensitive. Is related to a particular plan that we're trying to move forward. I would question anyone who makes reference to a parking park to give us to quantify what that would cost. And is that $52,000 enough for a parking park? What other costs would be associated with that? In addition to us exchanging lots with a lot that we don't own to make that more viable for the notion of having this pocket park next to Lee Theater. So Gary Iverson, I know him, and I don't think this is something that's done to the community. I think this is something that's done with the community based on a long-term process. It's over 11 years. We're not deviating from anything we've done over the last 11 years, so I find it kind of interesting that this seems to be such an issue right now. It's nothing that hadn't been done without the input and involvement of the community and those who've been part of that, even though Freddie doesn't work at the city anymore. Freddie was very instrumental in that work, along with Tony Brzezinski, Mr. Moore, Mr. Carpenter, and other folks who help us move this work and support this work and move it forward. And it's time sensitive. I mean, it's important for us to get this done and set our goals and set our timelines to move this forward.
Thank you, Director Richardson. Director Campiris.
Could and maybe Ken can or Bruce can, how is this time sensitive that 2 weeks is going to make a difference? I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot of questions, and 2 weeks, unless there's something that we're going to miss a grant or something like that, I don't see how it is a time-sensitive issue. And if it is, I'd like to know.
Mr. Manager.
Mayor, members of the board, I'm not aware of any time-sensitive issues between now and 2 weeks at this point that I'm aware of.
Director Richardson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Moore, and Mr. Carpenter. I think when we first talked about this, the scope of services and the work is actually based on a work schedule or work plan that began at the 1st of March in order to complete the work that's been proposed. So there's a whole list and scope of services that's been presented to us, and it's based on a timeline. I won't delay this anymore. I mean, that's the will of the board, but I just think that we need to understand that this is an important part of us redeveloping a part of our community that is in very much need of it, and we've benefited from it substantially. We've had significant public investment in that area that we're trying to strategically use to attract private investment. And I think the branding could and should be a part of it. If those of us who have been involved with that could understand that this has been longer than this $52,000. It's been a long-term 11-year process that has engaged multiple neighborhood associations, that has engaged multiple business owners, that has engaged multiple people from the city staff, including the former mayor and the former chief of police, and Tony Bazinski and Andre Bernard and other folks who've been involved with city work over time, just trying to help us collectively move this area to another level of community development.
Thank you so much, Director Richardson, for those comments. We'll now entertain a motion. There's a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. It will be deferred for 2 weeks. We've now entered into the portion of our citizens' communication. We have one communication card from Mr. Raycop regarding the topic of the Little Rock Police Department Chief of Police selection issues.
Before I get to that, Mayor, I'd like to point out that I did have a card to speak on the edition M1, but it wasn't recognized. And Director Adcock had mentioned back last year that she wanted to know who, I think Stacy Witherall had said that it was an administrative decision to let all of Mayor Stodola's time roll over instead of the 500 hours that he had. And Director Adcock repeatedly asked Ms. Witherall who was the administrative decision maker. And Ms. Witherall wouldn't answer, and the maker of that decision was Bruce Moore. Through the Freedom of Information Act, I obtained a email that
and Mr. Raycop, just we can look at the time at 2:17 just to make certain we know that at the time that I did interject, we have to make certain this is specific to Little Rock Police Department Chief of Police selection.
Actually, I'm allowed to present any item not on the agenda and have a grievance and oral. And if you don't want to hear it, that's fine. You're not transparent. You've never addressed your sealed criminal case.
Mr. Raycop.
And you don't want people to speak.
Hey, Mr. Raycop, we're going to be respectful today. I did let you know at 2 minutes and 17 seconds I did interject. So we will give you your time at 2 minutes and 17 seconds to discuss the Little Rock Police Department issues.
Well, I'm going to get to that.
But you were speaking to M1. And a part of M1, the reason why you were not recognized for M1 because you placed your card after the meeting started.
That's not in an ordinance, and it's not on your your form.
Yes, it is. If you will read the ordinance, it says anytime before the meeting starts.
Where is it on this form?
Go to Citizens Communication, and I can read it out loud to you.
That was an agenda item. There's a difference.
That's the reason why you weren't recognized.
You have a white card. Where on this form does it say you were to turn in the white card?
We're going to be respectful today.
No, I am respectful.
You're not going to be respectful today?
Where is it on this form that it says you have to turn the white card in?
Mr. Raycop, I'm not going to read anything for you, but if you want to continue on, your time
it's not there. Well, it's not there. Just be honest.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Raycop.
That's all we ask, is that you be honest.
Mr. Raycop, thank you so much.
All right. But anyway, Ms. Adcock, the city manager is the one that told Ms. Witherall to let all of Stodola's time roll over, and I can provide you with that copy of that email. All right, you have a police chief candidate, Mr. Chamberlain, from Los Angeles, and kind of concerned that you have him here because he was involved in a $1.2 million payout over some racial discrimination, sort of like what we had with our befouled chief, Kenton Tremar Buckner. Why do we want to have someone come in to the city that has this type of history? I mean, these issues also were involved when he was a candidate in Chattanooga last year. And I think it's a disservice to the citizens of Little Rock that you have a candidate like this with this type of history in the running to be our police chief. And I don't know who did the vetting of this candidate, but all you have to do is go on Google, put Chamberlain, LAPD, and lawsuits, and you'll get all the information you want. One of the things that he said was he had officers coming for a Christmas overtime, and he told them he didn't want them sitting at 7-Eleven drinking watermelon Slurpees. Now, how you can consider that individual to be our next chief is just beyond me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Raycott. For today's meeting, before we adjourn, I do have a few updates. First, we want to discuss the Little Rock Police Department forums. Those dates will begin for those forums, or the actual stay of the external and the internal candidates. But let me pull it up for 1 second. Mr. Chamberlain will arrive into the city of Little Rock on Monday, February the 25th. Sunday, February 24th, but his day of meetings will be Monday, February 25th. The 6 p.m. public forum will take place at Philander Smith College in the Kendall Nugent Center. On February the 28th, Assistant Chief Hayward Finks will have his day of meetings at 6 o'clock at Philander Smith College. He will have his reception as well on the 28th. And on Monday, March the 4th, Chief Keith Humphrey will be in Little Rock for his meetings, and his evening event will be at 6 o'clock at Philander Smith College, Kendall Nugent Center. And then on Wednesday, March the 6th at 6 o'clock, Assistant Chief Alice Falk will have her day of meetings as well. Secondly, for today's notes, as you all know, that on December 3rd, 2018, this board and the former mayor voted for a former government study group. We did discuss those names. We did discuss that we will be making those appointments here shortly after this year started. So I will read those appointments, starting with Ward 1. Ward 1's representative for this study group will be Loretta Hendricks. For Ward 2, that representative will be Donna Massey. For Ward 3, the representative will be Preston Eldridge. For Ward 4, the representative will be Rick Campbell. For Ward 5, the representative will be Darrell Coker. For Ward 6, the representative will be Ann Marshall. For Ward 7, the representative will be Don Schellebarger. As far as the 4 at-large appointments, those will be Ronnie Jackson, Robert Coon, C-O-O-N, Karen Buchanan, and Gary Smith. Those will be those lists for the former government study group. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Yes, sorry, I didn't see that. Director Hendricks.
No, I guess it's.
Oh, yours are still on. Director Wright?
Yes, I had 2 points, Mayor. I need Mr. Moore to provide more explanation on the waterline insurance information that's being sent out through the mail. I'm getting a lot of questions about that. People are concerned. They want to know whether or not the city is getting paid out of this. I've tried to explain best I can, but I think we need an explanation from you.
Sure. 2 things. The CEO of Central Arkansas Water, Tab Bohannon, is scheduled to be here next Tuesday to brief the board on just the rates that that agency is proposing, and we've also asked him to address the water line program. I would remind the board that late last fall, the board did pass a resolution authorizing the city to enter into the agreement, and if I remember correctly, the initial allocation of some $20,000 or so was going to be would go toward the pilot housing program with the environmental court. So that was sort of the discussion around the initial funding, and then obviously it depends on how many people sign up. But it really is a agreement between the property owner and that company. The city is not involved. This is something that the cities across the country have been involved in for quite some time. including, I believe, North Little Rock and some other cities in Arkansas. But I think Tad's going to be here to talk about the process and the program. If you remember, a few years ago, we had the same discussion.
Due to some recent news, this meeting is now called to adjourn. Point of privilege from the chairman. Everyone, please exit the building.